Okay, hi guys. I'm not really sure why I want to cover this. Well, I am, but it's my own personal reasons. So this is a clip from last night's last night UK time anyway. Show on the line. It's called the Hang Up, and Matt Dillahunty hosts it. There he is, as you can see. We have a theist caller down there with the pronouns because, of course, like you got to do that. Called JT, and I guess the reason, if I'm gonna talk about it at all, that I wanted to cover this is to just show. I'm not gonna be the first person to show it, but show how kind of dishonest Matt Dillahunty is in his interactions and how uncharitable he is. So I might not cover the whole clip because it's quite long. It's a long call. I might do it in 2 segments or splice it together later or something. But without further ado, let's start the call.
And scientific evidence that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth.
Yeah, so for start, you have three things that have to exist in the exact same time in the exact same place that create everything that we know in existence, which is space, time, and matter. So without space, you can have time but matter, but you don't have anywhere to put it. Without time, you can have space and matter, but you don't have a beginning or an end to where the space and the matter is. And without matter, you can have space and time, but there's nothing to exist in the time or in the space. And so,
Okay.
Just pause, just to say, I don't agree with the caller. I think the caller is not correct about that. Let's see what Matt has to say.
Genesis 1:1, God creates space, time, and matter. And in order for something
Actually, that's
to be
not what it
created,
says.
space, time, and
That's
matter.
not what it says. That's not what it says. But also, I said, what is the historic and scientific evidence for Genesis 1:1? Because it says that God created the heaven and the earth. You've just described space, time, and matter. You haven't presented any scientific or historical evidence that God created heaven and earth.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting to. But space would be the heavens, earth would be the matter, and time is in the beginning. So in order for something, time, space, and matter to be in existence, something outside of those
I'm sorry, JC. You don't get to revise stuff. But even if we were to say that heaven,
so he's not allowed to correct himself if he even did that?
Heaven is space and earth is matter, even though there's matter beyond earth. Where's the demonstration from history or science that God did this?
Yeah, so science itself says that nothing can come existence from nothing.
No, it doesn't.
This is incorrect, and Matt is about to be right on a point. Science does not say that.
So JC, that's not what science says at all.
Okay.
But also, science doesn't claim that something did come from nothing. What did God create heaven and earth from, in your view?
Well, in order for something as in time, space, and matter to exist.
No, that's not what I asked.
Time, space,
that's not what I asked.
Yeah,
that's not what.
He's trying to explain something to you, which you may be a little bit further ahead of him and kind of assuming where it's going. That's fine. But he knows that's not exactly what you asked. He just wants to say something beforehand. That's not unreasonable.
What I asked.
Trying to answer your question.
Well, you're failing, so let me re-ask it.
Yeah.
Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created. What is the historical or scientific evidence that God has ever done anything?
Yeah. Scientifically, you can't create water from air.
No, sir.
So in order,
no, sir.
Air cannot turn into
no,
water.
Sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I don't
think Matt Dillahunty has been to the Ask Yourself school of debating.
don't need you to parade your scientific ignorance, because even if it were true that you can't create water from air, that is irrelevant to whether or not science confirms that a god has ever done anything. So once again,
I mean, I'd like to bring up dehumidifiers at this point because they create water from air, but maybe that wouldn't fit with the caller's definition of creation. Maybe he'd want to say something like, they don't create it, they just rearrange or reorganize it, maybe. I mean, I'm not the one talking to the caller.
what is the scientific evidence that a god has created something?
Yeah. The scientific evidence is that nothing can exist from nothing.
No, that is not the case. That is not the case.
Okay,
JC, JC, no, we can't agree with that. I didn't agree with it the last time you uttered it.
I'm just trying to find
I'm sorry. I'm asking you, what is the scientific evidence that God did anything?
Okay, I'm trying to understand where.
So the caller says that he's trying to understand. Presumably, that means that he's trying to get some clarification on the question that Matt is asking him. Now, you might want to say, oh, well, it's perfectly clear cut. Why does it need clarification? You got to remember, this guy, he's probably never interacted with Matt Dillahunty before. Maybe it's his first time calling. I have no idea. But he's just trying to have what, to me, would sound like a normal conversation if it weren't for this guy. Let's continue.
Where you consider life to begin? Is it the Big Bang? Is it all of a sudden there was a single-celled organism and now we're in existence?
JC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Where I consider life to begin is irrelevant to whether or not science confirms that God did something. The beginning of life is irrelevant to whether or not God did something. How can somebody show that? I'm sorry. Why are you fucking talking? Why are you fucking talking?
Nice attitude.
When I'm trying to answer your question, when you have failed to answer mine repeatedly.
He tried to. He may have been making a big dog's breakfast of it, but he was trying to. And remember, earlier in the show, you guys can see the title there. You can go back to earlier in the show where Matt himself said that no one was going to piss him off, or at least a specific caller wasn't going to do that. And he mentioned something about his blood pressure. Nobody's even going to get my blood pressure up tonight, is what he said.
Let's try this again. Yeah. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Where is the scientific evidence that heaven and earth were created by God? I don't need you to tell me what can't happen. I need you to tell, or what you think can't happen, because you're fucking wrong. I need you to explain what the scientific evidence is that God created heaven and earth.
Well, science says that nothing can exist from nothing.
No.
This is also a repetition of a claim that the caller's made, which is not true. Science does not say that. So let's continue.
It doesn't say that. No, JC, I'm going to mute you. I shit you not. Science doesn't say that. Science doesn't make proclamations of truth, and nobody's asserting that something came from nothing except for theists who are advocating that God created something from nothing. For the last fucking time, do not tell me what you ignorantly think.
Spoiler, it won't be the last time.
Science says about what can't happen. Science doesn't say anything about a God. There is no scientific study, survey, result, test, method, or anything that includes God. There is no scientific confirmation of anything supernatural. Never has been. It is beyond the realm of science.
This is correct. I agree with Matt. But notice how he's not exactly under control, and this will only get worse as we continue.
Are monumentally wrong about what science can even do. I'm trying to get you to tell me how you think science confirms a God. And all you're doing is saying, well, it says nothing can't come from nothing, which isn't what science says, which doesn't prove that it was done by a God. It doesn't prove that it was done at all. So for the last time,
Again, it won't be for the last time.
please present a scientific, peer-reviewed study that confirms that God created heaven and earth.
I don't think this caller called in saying that he had a scientific peer-reviewed study that would prove or demonstrate that God created heaven and earth.
You still there?
We're back.
All right, can I answer your question?
I doubt it, but you can try.
Okay. The evidence that God created everything would be in more layman's terms, the Big Bang.
Okay. Big
Do you
Bang
believe in the Big
cosmology.
Bang?
No.
Or is that
I'm sorry. Big Bang cosmology is the current best explanation for all of the available evidence that talks about the expansion of everything, the expansion of space-time from
right?
a beginning.
This is correct, at least according to my understanding, and the caller, by saying right, appears to be acknowledging this.
That is not, doesn't mean something was created. It only describes the expansion. We have no ability to explore that expansion, even with mathematics, prior to the Planck time. It is entirely possible that everything always existed in some form or another prior to the expansion. The Big Bang is not, the Big Bang is not confirmation of a God. The Big Bang is a description of what happened from the tiniest fragment of a second from when the singularity began to expand forward.
Yeah. So the Big Bang, exactly what you said, a measurement of when everything moved into something, and it had to have been greater than what it was in the previous time. And it expanded all Earth, all galaxies, all creation on Earth and outside.
I don't really know what the caller JC means by greater there, but we'll just kind of let that go.
Out of Earth, all expanded within a fragment of a second, which is what you just said.
No,
and in Genesis
no,
1,
no,
and
no,
in
no,
Genesis
no,
1,
no,
1,
no, no, no.
it
The
says
the
that
universe is. Stop talking. The universe has been expanding for 13.7 billion years. The Earth was not around there at that time. Life wasn't around at that time. You don't even have the basics of the Big Bang right, but nothing about the Big Bang confirms that a God did something.
That's correct, also. And you also have this guy, like, to be fair to him, he's being quiet. He's been quiet the whole show. So let's go back to Matt.
Here's your scientific confirmation that a God did something.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. I'm trying to find a common ground.
You can't explain shit to anybody, JC.
And here we go. He's trying to tell you something that he thinks, right? He may well be incorrect, but you have a call-in show. It's hosted on the Line Network, and yours is on the Wednesday evening. It's called The Hangout. So, do you want people to call in? Because you keep saying you do. So here's a guy calling in.
How would you show that a God did something?
A beginning of anything. I'm trying to understand what you consider the start of anything, whether it's a single cell, whether it's one fragment of something that happened in space or matter or time that began what we consider to be
JC,
life.
what's the difference?
Now we have the caller who exclaims that he's trying to understand something that he assumes, perhaps correctly, perhaps incorrectly, that Matt might think.
Difference between a cell and an atom.
Yeah, a single cell, a single atom, a single cell organism, a multi-celled organism.
No, JC, anything. What's the difference between a cell and an atom?
Yeah, there's multiple atoms, whether it's valence electrons, neutrons, protons that make up an atom, and then atoms are formed into a single cell organism.
I've unplugged my headset, Brady. I'm going to go get some tea.
The chemistry.
Why? And what are you laughing at? He's not a million miles out. He didn't get it exactly right. But why are you scoffing? He's not entirely incorrect. Is it imprecise? Sure. But what are you expecting?
Random science words prove God. I give up.
Random science words? Really?
JC,
the problem is that you
JC, what's going on, man?
The beginning of your life or of life at all.
JC,
so
do you understand that what you're doing is you're trying to reverse everything back to here's the furthest that we know, and we can't go back beyond that. And because we don't know anything beyond this point, therefore my explanation must be what explains this, and my explanation is God. God for you seems to be a catch-all category of, if I stick all of the omnis, omnipower, omniscience, omnipresence, if I stick all...
Caller hasn't used any of these terms so far, and I don't think he ever does.
All the omnis into a huge question mark and put that back beyond the Big Bang, then I can say that that question mark did everything that came after that point. But you can't demonstrate that question mark. You can't demonstrate your God. What Matt was trying to get you to do was explain or expound on any evidence for the God that you...
Well, if that's what Matt was trying to do, and as someone who's very familiar with Matt Dillahunty, maybe he should have let him do it. Huh? How's that for an idea?
You think did everything that comes after the point that you want to say, see that point there? My God's beyond that. Demonstrate your God beyond that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I'm proving God, that's different than proving creation, but I can prove.
Paul is kind of right about that, depending on how you interpret those terms, but I think that's a fair thing to say.
That the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God and the Father of Jesus Christ, based on historical documents, historical evidence, outside manuscripts, the
what
fact
historical
that we have over
evidence do you have?
Manuscripts.
What?
Just cut him off. Why don't you? You know, anybody who's familiar with this network and the hosts on the network, some are more guilty than others, granted, but yeah, if you cut them off, I mean, this guy isn't going to do it, to be fair to him, but Matt will. If you dare to interrupt Matt, you're going to get muted, you're going to get yelled at. Let's just continue.
What historical evidence do you have that the God of the Bible is responsible for the creation that you're pinning on it, other than a claim?
Yeah.
Hold on, JC. Other than a claim written by you.
He just said, yeah.
Written by a claim by you know not who. You don't know who wrote the claim, but you like the claim. What is the evidence that the God you're trying to pin this creation on, A, exists, and then is responsible for this creation?
Yeah. All right. So the evidence that the claim that I'm making that God, this person.
Now, he's acknowledging the caller. That is, he's acknowledging that he's making a claim. Let's hear the rest.
Created everything, and it's written in the Bible. And so I have to prove that claim, right? So the Bible itself.
He's adopting the burden of proof, which is good. I like this. Nothing wrong with this.
As a manuscript, was written by 40 different authors over a time span of 2,000 years. And it through and through from Genesis to Revelation. It has zero contradictions, and it depends on how what contradictions you want to go into.
So now you've interrupted him. He hasn't been speaking for very long. I mean, what was that? About 8 seconds or something? Now you've done it very politely, and I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that, but you want to cut him off already.
See, do you think that the Bible says anything that's
I have to prove the Bible.
Oh, and here comes smug Matt Dillahunty. Let's keep going.
You're giving me talking points. You're giving me Christian talking points about how many different authors over how many years. You don't know how many authors contributed to the Bible.
External historical evidence, and that's what I'm working to. So, in the first 5 books of the Bible is written by a man named Moses.
JC,
so we have
JC,
proof.
JC.
Yes.
Yes. Who wrote the book of Exodus?
If I pause this every time the hosts, I mean, to be fair, this guy isn't super guilty of it, but this guy, yeah, this is going to change.
Moses.
Who wrote the book of Leviticus?
And this guy, I've listened to most of this call. I haven't even listened to all of it. He thinks that he's going to trip the caller up, JC, on who wrote what, and this caller seems to know the answers.
Describe the Moses.
When did Moses die?
Moses died about 1400 BC.
Is the story of Moses' death recorded in the book of Exodus?
It's in the book of Deuteronomy.
Genesis, Exodus, the book of Deuteronomy.
Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
I'm dusty on my Bible at this point. Who recorded?
Okay, nice cope. I wouldn't know the answer to those questions, so I wouldn't ask them to someone unless I had the answers ready to go.
Moses' death.
Yeah. Joshua, which was
so who wrote about Moses' death?
Joshua.
So then, if Moses' death is in Deuteronomy, then did Joshua?
Now let's not anymore accuse this caller of not answering questions, right? When he knows an answer, he's perfectly happy to give it. When he wants to give a more nuanced answer, let's not cut him off in 3 seconds. And for the record, I'm an atheist. Anyone who knows me online is going to know that already. I'm not saying, like, I'm not making this so that people will be convinced that Christianity is true or something. That's not the idea behind it. The idea is to expose what happens if you call into this show.
Joshua write Deuteronomy?
No, Moses wrote Deuteronomy before he died, and then Joshua wrote the last chapter of Moses to record his death, and then that's when Joshua chapter 1 picks up at the end of Deuteronomy, which I believe is 32. So Moses.
So Joshua and Moses wrote Deuteronomy?
Yeah, predominantly Moses. I mean, he's given 95% of the book of Deuteronomy. Then Joshua wrote the latter half, which would be considered to be Joshua. But historically, they broke it up into Deuteronomy because there's a transition of what starts happening at the end of Deuteronomy and the first of Joshua to be considered into Joshua, but it's still considered the Bible. And so that's the end of Deuteronomy is written by Joshua, but.
So that wasn't the own that you thought it was, right?
Moses wrote the most of Deuteronomy.
Prove it. I'm sorry.
Prove it? Well, I mean, how's he supposed to do that, right? I don't believe in the Bible, but if you want to have a dispute over who wrote what and it's not the Gospels, that's going to be kind of difficult.
Sorry.
So I can prove it by Joshua, the first book of Joshua.
Prove it.
Okay, the caller says that he can prove it. Matt immediately gets in with, no, you can't. Now who's correct? Let's find out. Well, if we find out anything at all.
You can't prove it. Biblical scholars acknowledge that it's just tradition that we attribute those to Moses. We can't demonstrate that any Moses ever existed or ever wrote anything, or that we have any copy of what Moses wrote. I have a simple question for you.
I think it is the case, like having dug into this several years ago for many years, several years ago. I think Moses is probably the most easily disprovable attribute for the Bible. Besides Jesus, I mean, I am kind of a mythicist at this point, but whatever. These aren't about my views on Christianity.
We can prove.
No. I have a
the existence of the children of Israel.
No. I have a simple question.
Yeah.
Which came first, plants or the sun?
The sun.
Why does the Bible say plants were?
Caller answers, like, notice how it was a much better conversation when this guy, like, what's his name? Brady Goodwin, was dealing with the call. Now we've got Matt back, and he's gonna force yes or no answers. And because, again, I've listened to this call, at least most of it, I didn't listen to it to the end, so I guess we'll do that together. He's gonna ask very pointed questions. You might want to say, well, what's wrong with asking very pointed questions? But there comes a point in this call where there is some confusion, and there's something that the caller really, really would like to explain and clarify to Matt. Now, I don't think that the caller. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Created the day before the sun.
It doesn't. So there's two different lights. So there in Genesis 1:1, God created. I'm giving you the answer.
You're lying.
Right. So the caller's trying to give an answer. Matt accuses him of lying. We'll stop this here and we'll do a part 2